Indeed, another wonderful morning here, somewhat Monday morning, the fourth day in the month of June 2018 here. You know, for sure, wonderful month here. So much packed in the month of June here. Many, particularly those in the Southwest, will be looking at June 12th, the day renowned philanthropists and presidential, let me say, president-elect and never sworn in, MQ Abiola, actually are passed on here, but everyone will talk about that subsequently. It's now time for us to look at aviation here and there, look at the sector, look at what's going on in the sector, look at what is happening when you're flying and you're not very conversant with what happens around the cockpit. You just feel that, look, everything is going on well. The only thing you know you want to do, for some of us who sometimes want to enjoy that cruise here, the first thing is to ensure that you sit down, you put on your music, you call the family. We have already boarded. We are about taking off here. And the other one is you relax, put some earpiece, get some music, or you just wait, you watch at the air hostess do their demonstration, and subsequently you just pray they quickly serve you the tea and serve you everything. My name is Hikaru Atta, and I got the aviation freak in the house as usual. Every Monday morning, we do it here from 8 to 8:30 here, and he's already in the house telling you that beside that tea, those snacks, those drinks, those food you get, there's so much going on around the plane that you do not understand yet. And that's the him on the screen there. Have the picture on the screen, Mr. Godwin N.E.K. Telephone number is there, 08026, if I get it correct, 522-995.
No, 822.
Okay, 822-995 here. You got the other one, 080-330-74614 there. The email is there at godike@yahoo.com. Here, the website is there. You can reach him. The YouTube channel is also there as well, aviationfreak.official here. And you can tweet at him at aviationfreaks here. But let's go away from the graphics on the screen here. A very wonderful morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, Nata.
Very wonderful morning. Very wonderful.
How's your weekend?
We thank God the weekend was fine. We got nice rain here. I hope I never flew, so that may not have affected me aviationally, as someone put it here. But it was a nice weekend. How was yours?
Oh, wonderful as always. Thank God. We're pushing on.
Okay, at the time is fast flying here, and we are going to be looking at the cockpit, a STERILE cockpit rule here, part 2. Yes, last week we talked about it, part 1 here, and today we're going to look at the cockpit rule, part 2 here. Somehow, how do we regulate the guys who are in charge of our lives here? What are we? Can you give us some details?
Well, we started our part 1 by showing how rules came about that anywhere below 10,000 feet, as you're approaching for your final, making your final approach for your landing, then the cockpit must be sterile. That is a time that both pilots and flight attendants are supposed to shut up and discuss only issues concerned with that landing to make it safe and nice.
Before we go to part 2 here, someone watched the last episode and called my attention to something.
Yes.
I think if I can get it very clearly, a German plane that crashed, I think last year also, where the main pilot was inside, went to the toilet, and the assistant pilot locked him up there and crashed the plane.
That's right.
Now, why don't we look at the cockpit rule to involve, look, if you are going to ease yourself, you don't leave the door open, and some other rules that can make safety, even if you are not landing and you're just on air.
Trust the thinkers and the shakers and movers of international aviation. Right after that incident, the rules changed in most European countries and the US that at all times, 2 pilots must be in the cockpit. So what does that mean now? A normal flight now will take minimum of 3 pilots, and if it's one of those huge jumbo jets, inclusive of flight engineers. So what it then means is that at any point in time, the rule now is 2 pilots must be in the cockpit. So if one wants to ease himself, you're free to go, but 2 must remain. There's no chance.
What if we have just 2?
It shouldn't. That's what we're saying, that the rule has been changed and the law has been changed, and if you breach it, then you don't need your job. So at all times now.
You want to lose your license.
That's correct. So the aviation world is very sensitive. As soon as something goes wrong, the International Civil Aviation Organization quickly put together their thinkers and then think through it, get what seems to be good solution to the situation, make their rules and deliver to the world. But then each country needs to domesticate in accordance with the peculiarity of that country. So if for some peculiar reasons a particular country does not find it necessary to have free pilots in the, you explain to ICAO and then domesticate yours to be in accordance with your special situation. That's why they say they give you out as a guide and then expect you to domesticate, either swallowing what is being dished out, hook, line, and sinker, or vary it a little bit to suit your own special circumstance.
Okay, Sterile cockpit rule part 2, what are we looking at?
Operating requirements. Okay. We're just going to conclude with two clips and then 2 others to show you and our viewers an average cockpit, what it looks like, okay, and how the job goes on in there. Now let's go to clip 1.
That's cool. That's it.
Yes, operating requirements of this STERILE cockpit rule. The U.S. Federal Aviation Regulations, fondly known as FAR, maintains that the rule is legally applicable only to scheduled air carriers. That means if you are a PPL, license holder, that is the pilot's private license for single private or even double engine, but private airplanes, the cockpit rule does not apply. That is, the STERILE cockpit rule does not apply to you.
Why?
I mean, it's your choice. If you need to be safe, and it's all you and you alone, and perhaps you and your spouse or you and your family. If the choice you make is to be careless and kill yourself and your
but don't explain. I think the rules that apply to those who drive. Let's leave the air and come to the road now. Apply to those who drive high-capacity buses. Apply to those who drive saloon vehicles as well.
That's correct. But in this case, the concern of the International Civil Aviation Organization is the safety of those innocent passengers that are massed in their hundreds, in the cabin, that need to be taken safely to their destination. And it would be very sad. Because of the severity of some, how do I want to describe the sense of the pilots who, rather than face safe landing, continue to discuss used car business and the rest of them, and then lose situational awareness, and at the end of the day end up controlling the airplane into the terrain, crashing and killing innocent people. The rule is simply say, no, we won't accept this. When it comes to that point, you must shut up, you must concentrate on the landing, discuss only issues concerning the landing, and make sure you do it safely in order to deliver those who entrusted their lives into your hands on trust. That's what it's all about. But for private airplanes, you should actually keep quiet. If in case you have somebody sitting next to you while you are doing your final approach, you understand that you need to do that approach safely. You understand that you need to touch down, save your life, save your airplane, and continue to enjoy your life. But if you choose to be careless and,
you kill your boss.
And make yourself a chatterbox in the cockpit,
your boss.
There you go. You die, kill your boss.
I don't seem to understand, sir, because the rule that applies to your boss and his friends will be the same rule that applies. It's about life. It's not about whether the man is big or small. That means they're leaving the man's safety to his own hands. The one that is a public, the one that carries large number of persons are the ones we are concerned about.
I do understand.
And you who got the billions to buy a private jet, get your pilot, do your cruising on the air, you secure yourself. Why the rule apply? But
here we go. Here we go. Let's get on with this clip. That's the situation. But you're going to see some variants when we get to clip 2. I'll start again. The U.S. Federal Aviation Regulations FAR maintains that the rule is legally applicable only to scheduled air carriers and commercial operators. Non-commercial general aviation operators are not affected by the rule.
Okay.
Under the rule, flight crew member duties include A, Certificate holders and flight crew members are not allowed to perform any duties during a critical phase of flight except those duties required for safe operation of the aircraft. We were basically saying the same thing. As soon as you get to 10,000 and below, then the rule kicks in, both for the pilots and the flight attendants. No flight crew member nor any pilot in command is permitted to carry out any activity during a critical phase of flight which could distract any flight crew member from the performance of his or her duties. Note, critical phases of flight include all ground operations involving taxi, takeoff, and landing. So when we talk about critical phase of flight, we're really talking about when you're taxiing on the ground, and then during your takeoff run, and then during your final approach for landing. Those are the critical points of
what about turbulence in the
sky? Of flying. No,
I don't love turbulence.
No, once you
I don't love turbulence.
Yes,
nobody loves it.
Nobody loves it. But when you're settled and you're cruising, more often than not, the airplane is on autopilot, and on autopilot, this machine is awesome, very faithful. It knows what to do to adjust for those weather situations. But if it comes to a very bad one, then it's also designed in such a way that if you get hold of your joystick and resist the movement of the auto disconnects immediately. For instance, if you're using the semicircular stuff, and your ailerons are busy moving up and down and adjusting for air pressure in order to keep you stable and comfortable. And then, of course, in the same process, you find your control column, that's your joystick, moving this way and that way, on auto. If for any reason you want to take over, control as a pilot, get hold of that control stick, resist that movement of the autopilot. Boom! The autopilot disconnects. It sends a signal to the sensor that the pilot wants to be in charge. It disconnects and lets you be in charge.
Okay, let's move on to clip 2 now.
Yes. So clip 2. Very well. We are continuing with operating requirements. Flight attendant and pilot communication. Now, this is going to show you how people can really observe in solving a problem, create one little one, observe that another problem is being created, and then adjust again to. Well, let's listen to this. As the sterile cockpit rule applies to flight attendants as well as pilots, experience has shown that flight attendants have been reluctant to call the flight deck. Flight deck is simply talking about the cockpit, okay? While the rule is in effect. You see, while the rule is in effect, even when there is an emergency, experience shows that some flight attendants refuse to talk to the flight deck to announce that, listen, something is wrong. There's smoke or there's fire or something like that. That also was another problem of its own. But a few airlines, took the bull by the horn and made some adjustments, and we're going to see that now.
Okay.
Yeah. They say that the experience has shown that flight attendants have been reluctant to call the flight deck while the rule is in effect, even during emergencies. Based on this challenge, some airlines, such as the Japanese airlines, formerly known as JAL, have inserted in the flight attendant's manual several situations that could warrant flight attendant to pilot communication during takeoff and landing. Okay. So now there's an adjustment, and there's some special situations. Then the sterile cockpit rule must be put at the back burner.
Okay.
Yes, and that situation is number 1. When there is fire outbreak, you immediately consign the sterile cockpit rule to the back burner. And ignore it and disturb the people in the deck, in the cockpit, and announce to them that, listen, there's fire. And then another one, the presence of smoke in the cabin. Once you notice smoke in the cabin, the flight attendants have been mandated to ignore the sterile cockpit rule and inform the deck that, listen, there's smoke. And so we need to find what's going on. Then aircraft attitude abnormality during takeoff and landing. If the aircraft attitude, all airplanes have their respective attitudes, and that's why That explains why if you train for a 747, you are not allowed to fly a 737 because the attitude of 747 is different from the attitude of 737. Sure. Otherwise,
I mean, if we look at it from the angle of what we do on the road, if you drive in a trailer, you don't come down to get a saloon car.
That's correct. This is something similar to that. Okay. Right. Then number 4, when there is abnormal noise or vibration, you are allowed to consign the sterile cockpit rule to the back burner.
That means you may be stalling when you have the plane jetted.
That's correct. Very correct. After you're really following, you soon become a pilot.
I got the teacher by my side, so I should follow.
Okay, number 5. Number 5, when fuel or other leakages are observed, then the cockpit sterile cockpit rule must be consigned to the back burner and this put to the fore. And they must inform the flight deck that this is going on so that they do what they need to keep people safe. So that's about it. But let's take a look at this awesome cockpit, and you see, move us to clip 3. So can you take a look at that? Do you love what you're looking at?
It's beautiful.
This is a typical.
It looks somewhat complicated here.
Yeah.
If you don't understand the buttons here, you may be pressing something or putting in trouble here. But am I right, sir?
Oh, that's correct.
It looks more like a broadcast studio. Let me go. You look like a broadcaster, master control room here.
You must
like a broadcast master control room here. You just need to look at everything and be very careful what you touch. If you touch anything wrong, then you know that the lives of persons are at risk.
So if you take a look now, the semicircular stuff, that's your control stick, fondly known as joystick, and where you hold with your both hands. You can pull it. You can pull it to yourself when you want to soar into the sky, or push it away from you when you want to dive. Take a dip. To go down, or you can turn that semicircular handle to the right in order to activate the ailerons for a bank. Turn it to the other side for ailerons. To activate a bank to the left. So that's actually the way it works.
What about those persons who drive some a supersonic plane that can turn 360 degree on air? What do they use? Is it the joystick?
The joystick for those war jets are usually single stick that is stock. Depending on the brand and model of the aircraft, so one on the left-hand side of the captain, but it's usually arranged in such a way that it is either a single, flying, so the pilot is the one flying and he's the one at the same time activating the guns and the missiles. In some designs, you have the pilot, sitting in front, and the gunner, sitting behind the pilot. So maximum of 2. So for those kind of supersonic planes, you have your single joystick. You still have your pedals and stuff, and then you can roll in any way you want. You can take a 180 degrees in a single swoop. You can turn upside down.
But it's beautiful watching those.
Watching
those machines.
Yeah, those machines are awesome, and so they're quite strong. If you ask me, and I'm very powerful. Some of them do as much as 2,000 kilometers an hour in speed and beyond. So that's it. Of course, if we get to clip 4, you now see you'll be able to see the roof. Take us to clip 4. That's another cockpit of another awesome machine. You see the scanning buttons on the roof. Can you see the roof there?
Yeah.
Those are the scanning buttons. If you step into the airplane in a state that is known as dark and cold, these are glass cockpits. When you turn them off, they present an image of complete darkness. Complete darkness. That's why when you step into the cockpit first thing in the morning, it's described as a state of dark and cold. And then they light up when you turn on the system, and then of course those buttons you see on the roof, most of them are for scanning. As you scan from front.
But wouldn't that, I'm not a pilot yet. I'm not a freak, and I like you. But when you look up, they won't that be distracting when you have such buttons?
No. No. They don't really. You see, more often than not, those ones are used when you are sitting on the ground. It's not all the time, but if you buttons and knobs, concern things that you can activate actually in flight. But more often than not, your scanning takes place when you're sitting on the ground before you even start off. That's why I said to you that airplanes are absolutely, very faithful. If you do your scanning front to back, left to right, if there's any issue that the plane has in any part of it, it instantly tells the pilot, listen, something is wrong here. So you should be able to fix and eliminate, that signal before you start off and then proceed to any trip. So you see how faithful and awesome these machines are. But unfortunately, human operators can be unfaithful and dishonest. The plane may tell them that something is wrong, and out of overconfidence, like you pointed out, last week, they say, "Okay, we can manage this. It's okay. Let's get to the next destination and have the engineers take care of it." And sometimes you never get there. So your best bet is, as soon as the machine announces to you that something is wrong, sit down there and deal with it. And so that's the way it's expected to run. So I think with this, I'm sure our viewers have had fun this morning. Next week, we're going to be looking at another brand new series that will excite them.
But one other question, somehow, when one anchors the program like this, and the program ends, and Mr. Agodike is returning back to do other things during the day, some of us who are seen on air, they ask us several questions here.
Go ahead, yes.
And such question will pass back to you here.
Yes.
He said, in the advent of the breach of the sterile cockpit rules, you don't wait to die before you correct somebody. That's the question here. That means you have a rule that, hey, you're going to do X, Y, Z. The question is, what if the pilots are breaching it?
No,
what happens? What? No, I'm asking. No, they're not. The man I was telling the man once they are found, it will be. He said, no, forget about when they are landing and they are breaking the rules landing. How do we stop them from breaking the rules? He was worried and asking me. You got the gist here. Yeah. These guys we're already going down here. And these men are talking about used cars, yes. My wife, my friends, my these, politics. And they are landing, not concentrating, and there are rules for them to abide by.
Yes.
What can we do to save those of us who are?
Unfortunately, when you're seated in your cabin, you do not know what's going on in the cockpit, unfortunately. And with the security situation in the world right now, the cockpits are locked with and equipped with very strong doors, security doors. In the past, cockpit doors were flimsy thing that you can kick it open. Not anymore. Around the world now, cockpit doors are installed with security that you can't even shoot a gun through it. It's bulletproof and hard to break. You can't kick at it and kick it open, not anymore. That is solving one problem and creating another. And so once in flight, pilots are locked away. And then the keys are usually coded. Maybe the head attendant may have the code, to be able to walk into the cockpit by just pressing a few buttons and the door is open, and then it passes some messages or pass some coffee and the rest of them to the pilots. Well, then for the passengers, too bad. You will never know what's going on there. If the pilots choose to be irresponsible, your life is just at stake, and that's it. But the pilots are trained and retrained and cancelled to do the right thing all the time.
Now, let's talk about monitoring and inspection here. Yeah. We may land successfully, and we may have been breaking this rule for years.
Yes.
Are you sure many airline operators check this plane? Are you sure they check? Oh, we just got this cockpit rule placed here. and most time when the plane lands successfully, thank you very much, you take off again, you land again, until the day when we got the crash, then we start to look for the black box.
Your point is well taken and noted, and it's an issue.
Do we carry out daily check once the man is landing?
I know that in most serious-minded environments, yes, they take this thing seriously. I had described to you before that our upbringing, has an issue. That issue that keeping routines is part of what we do not seem to. We're not bringing up our younger ones to learn how to stick to routines and keeping routines. I once described to you, that if this pen is meant to be here and you are employed to ensure that this pen sits here all the time, you don't need to know why it has to sit there. Your employers have the reasons why they want it to sit here all the time, and you are employed to ensure that it sits there. If it moves, your job is go put it back in its correct state round the clock. Now, an average young person in our own climate will watch it for 1 week, it doesn't move. Another week, it doesn't move. He tells his friends, oh boy, this thing when they say, make I they watch, they move.
So just leave it there. I want to travel to Lagos. When I come back, it will not move. And then you travel in.
The very day you step aside, it moves, and nobody to put it there. And the reason for it not to move happens, and there is disaster, and they say, oh my shell is God day, Sha. If God no permit them, if it not happen.
If not
that is how much we have degenerated in serious issues that demand serious-mindedness. And then we need to really train our young ones to take serious things seriously and keep routines all the time. I was reading about one of the United States awesome submarines, and they say each time, they change their duties, 8 hourly change. They would do a minimum of 48 checks to have another team take over. A checklist about if I remember what I read about that submarine is 48. Normally, these things will all be in good order. Nothing ever wrong. But those checks must be carried out before the new team takes over. And as they are passing on to another set after 8 hours, they do exactly the same routine, and it's religiously done. But you see, we need to change our attitude. We need to bring up a generation of young people that would understand the meaning of routine and the meaning of getting serious jobs done seriously. And I do appreciate how the young ones also feel. I've said to anyone about us to listen to me, especially those in the corridors of power. You draw patriotism for the citizenry when you give concern and attention, to the people. I've told you a story about the American pilot that was rescued in Iraq during the Second Gulf War. Oh. His F-117 stealth fighter bomber was mysteriously shot down. I say mysteriously in the sense that airplane was an airplane that no radar could ever pick up. And it was a supersonic jet that would come in, do its job, disappear from your environment before you even hear the sound of the airplane. But for some strange reason, this young man, got into enemy territory. Before he could, take out his target, he was himself shot down. And then he bailed out of the airplane, landed in the midst of enemy territory. And the American government was said to have deployed men and materials said to be worth $2.3 billion. To go into the enemy territory and pluck the young man safe and nice, no injury, absolutely nothing. Took him home. I remember that very day. As I speak right now, I have goose pimples running all through my body. The day he was delivered to the arms of his mother in the U.S. when he was brought home. Now tell me, that young man and his family, would they ever sabotage the United States of America as a nation?
They won't.
Would they ever sabotage that nation? That's what we need to start passing on to the people of Nigeria so that we will draw patriotism from Nigerians. This is an awesome nation, and we can make it one of the greatest in the world if we really desire to and get serious.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Godi Ike. Next week at the same time, 8 a.m., we'll be talking aviation again. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, my dear viewers. Next week, we're going to be dealing with, this time, cockpit resource management.
Okay.
Cockpit resource management.
Okay, maybe
you will be amazed.
Then we'll have to give him more questions. Okay, thanks for coming on the program.
All right.
Okay, we'll take a break. Quickly, when we return from the break, we will be looking at the police invitation of Senate President to come explain himself over allegations of involvement, indirect involvement in the robbery saga that claim over 30 lives after this break.